In the shadows behind closed laboratory doors, a revolution is brewing. It's not the AI you see in the news or on your smartphone. It's something far more profound, more transformative, and potentially more dangerous than anyone is willing to admit. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the future of AI. What you're about to learn might shock you, inspire you, or even keep you up at night. But one thing's for certain. After watching this video, you'll never look at technology the same way again. Here are the 10 things they're not telling you about the coming AI. Let's begin. Number 1, the silent takeover of your mind picture. You're scrolling through your social media feed, mindlessly consuming content. But what if I told you that with every scroll, every like, every pause on a video, AI is silently mapping the landscape of your mind? It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now. Advanced AI algorithms are not just tracking your online behavior, they're decoding your thoughts, predicting your actions, and slowly reshaping your reality. A study by Stanford University found that AI can predict a person's personality traits with 95% accuracy just by analyzing their Facebook likes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The latest AI models can infer your emotional state, political leanings, and even your deepest desires from the subtlest online interactions. Think about it. Every time you hesitate before clicking, every extra second you spend on an article, every slight change in your typing speed, it's all data for the AI to consume and analyze. It's building a digital twin of your psyche, one click at a time. This isn't just about targeted ads anymore. This level of psychological profiling could be used to manipulate your behavior in ways you can't even imagine. From influencing your voting decisions to subtly altering your worldview.
Did you know that AI is set to create 97 million new jobs by 2025?
To subtly altering your worldview. The potential for mass manipulation is unprecedented. So the next time you're online, remember, you're not just consuming content, you're feeding an AI that's hungrier for your thoughts than you ever realized. Number 2, the unseen architects of tomorrow. While we're distracted by chatbots and virtual assistants, a different breed of AI is quietly shaping our world. These aren't the AIs that write your emails or recommend your Netflix binge. These are the unseen architects of tomorrow, and they're making decisions that will affect generations to come. In boardrooms and government offices around the world, AI systems are crunching numbers, analyzing trends, and making predictions that guide policy decisions. From urban planning to climate change strategies, AI is increasingly becoming the invisible hand that shapes our future. Consider this. In 2022, the city of Amsterdam implemented an AI system to optimize its public transportation network. Within 6 months, traffic congestion decreased by 23%, and public transport usage increased by 17%. The kicker? Most residents had no idea AI was behind these improvements. But it doesn't stop there. AI is now being used to predict crime hotspots, allocate healthcare resources, and even determine economic policies. In China, an AI system called AI Economist is being used to simulate millions of economic scenarios to help craft fiscal policies. The implications are staggering. These AI systems are making decisions that affect millions of lives, often without any public awareness or scrutiny. So the next time you hear about a new government policy or a change in your city's infrastructure, ask yourself, was this really a human decision, or was it orchestrated by the unseen AI architects of tomorrow? Number 3, the emotional puppeteers. Imagine an AI that doesn't just understand your emotions, but can manipulate them at will. Sound far-fetched? Think again. The next generation of AI isn't just about processing data, it's about processing feelings. Enter the world of effective computing, where AI systems are being designed to recognize, interpret, and even influence human emotions. This isn't just about a chatbot that can tell if you're angry or happy. We're talking about AI that can read the micro expressions on your face, analyze the tone of your voice, and even detect changes in your heart rate, all to gauge and manipulate your emotional state. A startup in Boston has developed an AI system that can detect signs of depression with 85% accuracy just by analyzing a person's speech patterns. But that's just the beginning. Research at MIT has shown that AI can be trained to generate content that elicits specific emotional responses with startling precision. Now, picture this technology in the hands of advertisers, politicians, or social media companies. An AI that knows exactly what to show you to make you feel fear, joy, anger, or sympathy. An AI that can craft messages that resonate with you on a deeply emotional level, bypassing your rational thought processes. This isn't just about selling you products anymore. It's about selling you ideas, beliefs, and worldviews. It's about shaping the very way you perceive reality. So next time you feel a sudden surge of emotion while browsing online, ask yourself, is this really how I feel? Or am I dancing to the tune of an AI emotional puppeteer? Number 4, the quantum leap. While the world marvels at the latest chatbots and image generators, a silent revolution is brewing in the realm of quantum computing. And when quantum meets AI, the results will be nothing short of mind-bending. Quantum AI isn't just an incremental improvement. It's a paradigm shift that could redefine the limits of what's computationally possible. Traditional computers, even supercomputers, pale in comparison to the raw processing power of quantum systems. To put this in, they're legally robbing you, and it's happening every time you pay for car insurance. Here's the deal: a big chunk of your money. The first major manufactured political crisis of the second Trump era is well underway, even before Donald Trump has been sworn in. It is a crisis that has led to Pentagon officials issuing warnings like this. Without an appropriation or a continuing resolution, our troops will miss their end-of-month paycheck during the holiday season. Military reservists drilling after December 20 will not receive pay for those drills, and federal civilians that are required to work during a shutdown will not be paid. Civilian employees whose work is paid for from lapsed appropriations will be furloughed for the duration of the lapse, which appears to coincide with the Christmas and New Year's holidays. Elon Musk wearing the Grinch costume well, no pay for the 2.1 million troops over the holidays. How exactly did we get here? As we reported during this hour yesterday, the government is barreling toward a possible shutdown. It's after Elon Musk led a rebellion against a bipartisan funding deal, and then Trump quickly followed in Elon's footsteps, only for a bill that met Musk's terms to go down in flames rather dramatically and quickly when dozens of Republicans joined the Democrats in killing it. Here's where things stand this afternoon. The situation remains very fluid, but the House is set to vote on a package that includes disaster relief, assistance for farmers, and keeping the government running until March. It would require a 2/3 majority vote, meaning Republicans would need Democratic support to pass this bill. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale is with us. Also joining us, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill's here. With me at the table, Democratic strategist Basil Smikle's here, and the president of the National Action Network and host of Politics Nation right here on MSNBC, the Reverend Al Sharpton's here. Ali Vitale, the Grinch gave me a cold, so I'll let you take over and bring us up to date on the latest.
The Grinch is also giving us chaos, I guess, here on Capitol Hill as we try to wind down for the year. I don't know which of us has it worse, but as of now, we're still sort of in this limbo period, Nicole, because about 2 hours ago, I was standing downstairs in one of the hallways of doom, as we like to call it, because it's where many of these huddles with Republicans often happen when they are reaching an inflection point or an impasse, and they need to get together to figure out what way they're going to go next. As folks emerged from that meeting, they were actually seemingly confident, not just that a government shutdown would be averted, but also that they had an operating plan for how they were going to do this. They were going to leave the debt ceiling or abolishing the debt by the wayside, basically chucking back the only thing that Trump and Musk actually asked for explicitly in this package. That's now by the wayside. And instead, they're going to sort of pull everything else apart, do a very skinny version of this initial government funding plan, and do it in 3 pieces. The first is just going to be basic government funding until mid-March. The second is going to be that disaster relief package we've often talked about. And the third is going to be an extension of the farm bill so that you don't run into bigger problems in your grocery store aisles because subsidies and other market prices don't remain fixed based on what
This one organ can make a woman's belly big and stick out.
Ooh.
And no matter how many diets or how much exercise you do, it won't help. Which organ?
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman of Pennsylvania, Brendan Boyle, ranking member of the House Budget Committee. So you have a deep understanding of numbers, presumably more than most, but what are the conversations you guys are having? Because we've talked to a number of members of Congress who are coming out of the Republican caucus. What are the conversations you're having on the Democratic side?
Well, it's great to be back with you. We are now, unfortunately, under 10 hours away from a government shutdown, and we are still waiting to hear what exactly House Republicans even want. Can they even reach some sort of an agreement amongst themselves? Let's not forget, the whole reason why we're here is because just a couple days ago, after the announcement was made that we had reached a widespread agreement, the leaders of House Republicans and House Democrats, Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats had all come together after a multi-week negotiation to announce an agreement. And then what happened? Elon Musk took to his own social media platform and started tweeting against it. And suddenly, 5-6 hours later, Speaker Johnson walked away from that bipartisan agreement. So that's why we are here at the last hour. And at this moment, House Republican leadership still has no plan other than if they just return to the bipartisan agreement they walked away from 48 hours ago.
Well, let me ask you about Elon Musk, because we talked to Dusty Johnson, Republican congressman, in the last hour, and I asked him very specifically, does Elon Musk have a place in these negotiations? And I'm going to read to you exactly what Dusty Johnson said. He said, when you've got somebody who's a brilliant disruptor and innovative, that's a voice we should be willing to hear from. But it's not like we've never been in this position before. So what do you really think the influence of Elon Musk is? And what do you think the chances are that in the next 9-10 hours, something gets done here?
Well, what I would say, based on the evidence of the last 48 to 72 hours, is that Elon Musk is the de facto leader of the Republicans on Capitol Hill, because Speaker Mike Johnson had announced we had reached a bipartisan agreement. Elon Musk took to Twitter, and after 6 to 7 hours of nonstop tweeting against the bipartisan agreement, you had House Republicans flip-flop and then suddenly pull the bill from the floor. Interestingly, Elon Musk blasted this agreement and came out against it a good 6 to 7 hours before we heard from Donald Trump. So the reality is Elon Musk is calling the shots for House Republicans, not Donald Trump, not Mike Johnson.
Well, Donald Trump said today, I don't know if in the chaos that is the Capitol Hill right now, you saw what he said. He said this is a Biden problem to solve. Does President Biden have any role in this? Should he be more involved? What do you make of what the analysis is by the president-elect?
Yeah, I give Donald credit. He is a pretty witty guy, and that's a nice attempt to deflect. The reality is that if House Republican leadership and their members had just kept their word, had they not reneged on an agreement they made, we would have wrapped this up yesterday. I mean, most members on both sides of the aisle were telling their families that we would be home for Christmas by now. And then it was Elon Musk who blew this up. House Republican leadership decided instead of acting on their own accord, since they're the ones that were actually elected, they instead decided to fold to what Musk wants, and here we are now.
Well, you look, there's a lot of finger pointing here. There have been a lot of Democrats who are calling Elon Musk President Musk. There are a lot of Republicans who are saying that this is on the Democrats' watch. But finger pointing aside, is there any room for real compromise here that you see, and what does that look like?
Yeah, we know what the compromise looks like. It is the compromise that was reached and announced.
I chose to pursue my MBA because it was important that I proceed a postgraduate study to be.
Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. So we start right now with a story of lawmakers struggling to strike a deal to keep the government funded. So if you haven't been watching this drama on Capitol Hill, let's get you caught up. So lawmakers came up with a federal spending bill. Elon Musk and President-elect Donald Trump torpedoed that. That was version 1. Now, version 2 gave a revised version, but that got shut down too when dozens of lawmakers joined together with Democrats to vote against it. So now we were at version 3. It has to pass by midnight to avoid a government shutdown. So what's this all about? We know what it's about for Donald Trump, who said on social media, and here it is, if there's going to be a government shutdown, let it begin now under the Biden administration and not after January 20th under Trump. So let's go live to West Palm Beach, Florida, and CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Thank you for joining us, Caitlin. Trump didn't stop there. He also had this to say: Congress must get rid of or extend out to perhaps 2029 the ridiculous debt ceiling. Without this, we should never make a deal. Remember, the pressure is on whoever is president. So he's not even sworn in yet. Already look like he's calling the shots. Let's dig into what he had to say. Walk us through that. Walk us through if this is sort of a foretelling of what. Never make a deal. Remember, the pressure is on whoever is president. So he's not even sworn in yet. Already look like he's calling the shots.
So speaking of the holidays, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day, so Thanksgiving Day 2022, the leader of one of the world's highest profile car companies made a surprise Thanksgiving Day announcement. He told people who owned his company's cars that as of that day, they no longer had to drive their cars. Starting that day, Thanksgiving Day, the cars would be able to drive themselves from here on out. Quote, Tesla full self-driving beta is now available to anyone in North America who requests it from their car screen, assuming you have bought this option. Congratulations to Tesla Autopilot/AI team on achieving a major milestone. So this is 2 years ago, again, 2022, Thanksgiving Day. Not really any warning this was coming. Just hey, if you bought a Tesla when you had the option when you bought it to pay a little bit extra so it would be capable of driving itself someday, if that day ever came, well, that day has come. Happy Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving Day. The company CEO put out that announcement. Within a few hours, it had led to some news.
Now at 5, 16 people, including 8 kids, were part of a multi-car crash on the Bay Bridge, causing some major traffic tie-ups.
They say it happened so fast, a chain reaction crash eastbound on the Bay Bridge and inside the Yerba Buena Tunnel.
I thought I was a goner at first when it happened. I mean, you see something like that, it's like coming towards you at full speed. I thought, well, this is it.
So that was Thanksgiving Day 2022. Just a few months later, the news outlet The Intercept obtained video that showed that accident as it happened. It turns out it was a Tesla whose owner says the car was in full self-driving mode and the car just randomly braked super hard in the middle of the tunnel, which is what started that huge pileup of cars in the tunnel, the one that injured all those people.
Until today, we only saw the aftermath of the chain reaction crash last Thanksgiving Day. Drive-by video of cars stacked up in the Yerba Buena Tunnel, eastbound on the Bay Bridge, and a traffic jam that lasted hours. But Bay Bridge surveillance video now shows how it started. A 76-year-old lawyer from San Francisco told the CHP his white 2021 Tesla Model S was in full self-driving mode when it suddenly deployed the brakes. A total of 8 vehicles crashed, 9 people injured, including a 2-year-old boy. Just hours before the crash, Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced the launch of the full self-driving beta version, which he called a major milestone. But there are a growing number of reports of the Tesla technology unexpectedly slamming on the brakes. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration assigned a special crash investigation team to look into what happened. They're already investigating dozens of incidents involving advanced driver assistance systems from Volvos, Cadillacs, Hyundai, Genesis, and Cruise, but mostly Tesla.
Mostly Teslas. And, car crashes happen. We humans aren't all that great at avoiding the problem of hurting and killing ourselves and each other with our cars. Car crashes are a plague. And who among us can say whether robots might be better at driving than us overall, writ large. But in a country with more than 280 million cars and trucks on the road, clearly it's worth studying if we're going to make this change, right? It's worth studying whether letting robots drive our cars is going to be more or less safe than having us humans drive cars. Well, the U.S. government is doing that studying. You saw a reference in that news report there to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration looking into that particular crash and others like it. Well,
if you don't want to open your third eye, then don't watch this video. This method isn't for everyone. If experience
Edgar Cayce, a prophet famous for his clairvoyant predictions in dreams. His influence goes beyond some. According to interpretations from sources like Sky History, this aligns with China's expansionist policies and growing global presence. It's intriguing to see how both Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus, despite their differing approaches, predicted China's significance in shaping the future. Their visions offer compelling insights into the nation's evolving role as a central figure. Edgar Cayce's prediction about humanity will discover new sources of energy in 2025. Edgar Cayce envisioned 2025, humanity would unlock new, sustainable energy sources from nature, revolutionizing the way we power the world. He foresaw breakthroughs in harnessing the Earth's natural forces, such as geothermal energy from the planet's core, fields, and advanced solar technologies that could surpass current methods. These innovations would pave the way for a cleaner, more efficient energy system, drastically reducing humanity's reliance on
fossil fuel. What are you doing, everybody? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And that was just a little smorgasbord of the distractive worldview, the basically illusion of a mimetic magic manipulation of the root social matrix. That's the world we live in, root social matrix, right? It's all being basically brought to us by power-hungry reptiles, right? And it's going to be an interesting time. And, you know, Plato said that the politique, meaning us, the people, right? The public, we get the leadership we deserve. Meaning, we are so disconnected from what's going on, from what our emotions are. Our emotions are like what's going on. They're about how AI is manipulating our emotions, you know. Well, it's kind of been before AI. There was this other AI called advertising, right? And propaganda. And AI just basically industrializes it, you know, makes it real snappy. And there have been many, you know, folk who've tried to, you know, what's going on, announcing, hey, there's a problem here. And, you know, that's why I'm in an underground bunker in an undisclosed location. So, what do you think? You know, I'm all ready to hear what you think, right? And I even got my glasses to read. And remember to put it up there. And, okay, night. Okay, fish. I'll talk to you later. Sweet dreams, princess. And anybody up there in Europe land where it's already kind of, you know, mid-morning, getting towards afternoon, and it's Saturday, want to jump in. And what do you think about, you know, America's unconditional support of Israel? I mean, do you know any of the facts of what Israel is? You know, what Israel was supposed to be? You know, Israel was set up as a place where the people who, you know, the Jews who felt pretty much never at home in the rest of the world. But they, Jerusalem was their capital, but 2,800 years ago, meaning it never was, 2,800 years they've been not in Israel, right? Not in Jerusalem, there were some Jews there, but not as a country, not as a, right? And God never really wanted Israel to be a state. It was supposed to be a spiritual relationship, between God. That was the covenant, right? A spiritual relationship. And then it grew into the Abrahamic relationship, because basically Christians were Jews and so were Muslims. That's why we had the Abrahamic religions, which are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? And they're all cousins. They all came from the same root races. They all have the same basic cultural dynamic, and that's why they kind of act a lot like each other, right? But if you read the Old Testament, see, most people don't realize, unless even a lot of Jews don't understand this either, that in the temple there were 3 books, right? There was the Torah, and that was the public domain. That was in public domain, right? And that was translated, Greek was the language of that time, right? When Jesus was around, pretty much everyone spoke Greek, just like the world today is run by the American hegemony. So pretty much everyone can speak some English somewhere in there. And so Greek was the language. And Greek was a really good language because it was very, very what it was, meaning French and Italian and Latin and Russian and Spanish. They all have, especially all the Romantic languages, and what they call them Romantic languages because they represent emotions, meaning they have gender and dynamic of the emotions. Greek doesn't have that. It is what it is. It's very straightforward. The Greek word for this is what it means. There is no metaphor. There is no, there may be poetry in there, but there's no, that word is that word. And that's why Greek is such a great language to study the ancient language, because all those ancient languages were translated into Greek, so all the Hamitic and all the mystery schools and all of those guys were translated into Greek, right? And so anyway, so the Greek, the Hebrew, and like the Jews, they didn't read the Torah in Hebrew, and they spoke Hebrew. See, Hebrew is a very spoken language, and it's a very specific, almost scientific, coded language. So the average Jew didn't read Hebrew, right? They spoke it, but they read Greek, if they read anything at all. And so the Torah was definitely translated into Greek, and that's what pretty much everybody was reading, in Jesus' time at least. And so basically, when you take the word Torah and translate it into Greek, it means you suck. Not like you sucking air, but you suck. Really, you or Richard Cranium. Can you translate that? Richard, Dick, Cranium, head. That's what the Torah basically was saying. God was talking about, Israel. And Israel never was Israel until, they were already around for at least a good 4,000 years until they, good old Moses let them out of Egypt. Then they started, when they crossed the Jordan there, when the sea was parted and they went across, they basically were supposed to go into the promised land. But people go, I don't know, it doesn't look too cool. Let's go over here. That's not what God wanted. So that's why they were aimlessly roaming around for 40 years. God still gave them the manna from heaven, right? So they didn't starve. And they had water when, they had this bucket. And, oh, look, there's drinkable water. And, oh, look, this other stuff. We mix the water and that, and then put it on the frying pan, and we get a matzah, right? So anyway, it's a very interesting story because religions are easily manufactured into any kind of propagandic thing. I mean, like, so you look at Christianity and you look at how America so supports Israel, right? And not Israel per se, because there's so many in the Hebrew tribes. There's Hasidim, Lubavitcher, Reformed, modern. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of Jews. But we basically back the Masonic, messianic thing, where Jesus coming back as a blade wielding, kick-ass kind of Rambo to kill everyone, and only the chosen few will go up to heaven, right? And that's not what Jesus was about. He was about unconditional forgiveness. Last words out of mouth. Father, forgive them; they don't know what they're doing. And it is done, right? So here we are, and we're on another deflection point. And there have been so many since the Civil War. The Civil War was really, the Europeans were whacking each other for, a good, 1,800 years. And then America became, with the Civil War, an industrial power, right? They already were a rich power, a manufacturing with slave power. And it's kind of like China. China became a mammoth industrial power through the slavery of their people, right? They gave them chump change and they became really rich, right? The ideologues, right? The oligarch. And that's how fascism is, Fascism is when the state is basically run by capital, right? And that can only occur when capital owns capital, right? Fluidity, right? And I played earlier on today a number of economic things, Catherine Fitz, the girl with the glasses, and a few other things describing kind of what's going on right now and how we are heading into a digital economic system where we will have no control of it whatsoever. If they don't like you, they turn off the switch. So you can get any food, you can't go anywhere, no heat, they just turn it off, right? And so there you go. How are you going to like that kind of world? Guys like Elon Musk running it, and all the guys who are running it, Elon Musk, Micro Penis, Billy Boy, Faceless Facebook Boy, the Google kids, Mr. Blue Origin, all of these people are just poster boys. They were not geniuses. They were not, they were basically knockoffs of the guy who killed himself in a federal court jail in Lower Manhattan. What's his name? And it's, interesting to see that guy because he was a cutout, meaning who was he really? Where did he come from, right? How did he go from being a middle class guy teaching at a prep school to becoming, within a number of years, becoming world class top 10 scary Edgar Casey prediction for 2025? Okay. 10 most scary Edgar Casey. Okay, we'll play that for a little bit. Let's see what he's had to say.
Fossil fuels and mitigating environmental harm. Casey emphasized that such advancements would not only drive technological innovation, but also necessitate a shift in humanity's mindset. He warned that exploiting these resources purely for personal or commercial gain could lead to imbalance. Instead, their use should be guided by a deep sense of responsibility, aiming to benefit the global community and foster a sustainable future. He called for the integration of technological, social, and ethical considerations to ensure that progress promotes equity and avoids harm to the planet. Casey's vision extended beyond technical breakthroughs to a profound transformation in human consciousness. He believed that true progress would come from harmonizing technology with ethical and spiritual values,
Good
creating
idea.
a civilization that thrives in balance with nature.
Good idea.
His predictions reflect not just a future of innovation, but a call for humanity to rethink its approach to development,
Good idea.
fostering a world where advancements are aligned with the well-being of the planet and all its inhabitants.
Good idea.
In addition to leaving behind prophecies for the future, Casey is also known as the father of holistic medicine. Edgar Casey's influence has extended far beyond his lifetime, shaping the lives of countless individuals and organizations with his groundbreaking ideas on health, spirituality, and holistic well-being. Known as this warning commandment offers a stark contrast, urging us to find contentment in what we have and to resist the impulse to constantly seek what belongs to others. In Deuteronomy 5:21, the 10th commandment is reiterated with slight wording variations, placing the neighbor's wife before the house, subtly highlighting the fact that coveting is not simply about material possessions, but also about relationships and personal desires. This commandment teaches that our thoughts and desires must be in harmony with God's will. Coveting can be an insidious temptation,
Oh, yeah.
often hidden beneath the surface of seemingly harmless ambitions,
Oh, yeah.
but it has the potential to spiral into actions that lead us away from God's purpose for our lives. What does it mean to covet? To covet is to feel an intense, often overpowering desire for something that belongs to someone else. It's more than a passing wish or longing. Covetousness is this love is not just a feeling or a thought, but an active, practical commitment that shapes our relationship with God. It is demonstrated through the first 4 of the 10 commandments, which are designed to guide us in honoring and revering God in every area of our lives. Loving God begins with the commandment to have no other gods before him. Exodus 20:3. God, as the creator of all things, deserves our exclusive worship. His greatness and sovereignty.
Now, you have to realize that, and in the beginning, God basically, we're going to make these guys in our image and likeness, right? So what does that really mean? We look like God? No, because we have no idea what that looks like. But what it is that there's a little bit of God inside of us, and we have to follow that relationship, that, agreement that we're going to co-create in love. So, how you doing with that? So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. There's one of you here. The show has been running for 37 minutes and 47 seconds. Fish was here, and she's one of the elders of the cadre. So here it is, Wednesday, or it is Friday, and we had no idea, we thought everything was moving along fine. We're having this nice little transition. Now, we're going to have a government shutdown, right? And you heard, the propaganda where, pretty much everything was set and there was an agreement. Agreement isn't like, agreement really in congressional language. Agreement is when the Democrats, Republicans work it out, make the compromise, everyone's in agreement, everyone knows there's enough votes to pass it, and the president agrees he's going to sign it. That's the agreement. They then go through the process of voting, then it goes on to the president, because they've already worked out all the little details. They've already said the Congress said this, Senate said that. They put it together. There's this thing in the middle that doesn't quite agree, so they kind of decide to make a little change here, a little change here. Everyone says, okay, that works. Everyone has made, a commitment to, good, I'm going to get just what I need for my constituency, so I'm going to give up this. Right? So that was all done, ready to be voted on. And then Elon says, all you mega guys, you have to shut this down. This can't happen, because they wanted to extend the debt ceiling into infinitum. Because the first thing they want to do is get that big tax cut for the billionaires. And the thing standing in the way is a debt ceiling. So they just want to, and they didn't want to like push it up a billion or trillion or two. No, they just want to get rid of it for the next 3 years. Like they could have 3 or 4 tax breaks for the billionaires. Anyway, so and the Democrats said, wait a minute, we already made it, we had an agreement here, right? And now you're going against it. I mean, the Republicans agreed that, we all voted on it. And we were going to have the big vote, we had all the votes. And now, because Elon says this, and then about 6 hours later, Donnie jumps in because, he doesn't want Elon to be president. So, but Elon won, Donnie's president's forum, 120 million or however many, whatever he gave him, and all the backing of his ex, inventing his own lottery. And so this is what our government has, our government has never been the democracy that it's been, stated to be. It's a joke, right? It's a republic run by Masonic old white men. Old, they were in their 40s. And they were smart enough to know, a Declaration of Independence is quite a document. And our Constitution and the Bill of Rights also are pretty interesting. But, Jefferson said, this really ain't going to work unless we have a sunset date for all legislation. Meaning legislation should not be around more than 15 years. Right? And Congress and senators should have a limited lifespan. They shouldn't be old guys making laws for young people. Right? We should, because the average of those guys at the Philadelphia Convention were in their 30s and 40s. So here we go. You look at Mitch McConnell, God, he looks like an Egyptian mummy. And all he can do is make havoc. He doesn't do anything in a positive sense. He just blows things out of the water. So, Donnie's not even sworn in yet, and he's getting he's got his 10,000, loyalists to take over the bureaucracy and destroy whatever bureaucratic structure we have, which is, again, Plato said the people get the politics they deserve because they're not involved. And they settle for crumbs. While the rich, if you look at the economic strata, right? That 1/10% have 60% of the wealth of the, if you look at the earlier video I did today, that little graph is on the video. It's like I had to make a whole new graph to be able to put those guys there. So the 40% of the American public, 40%, of those guys are below. When you put that 1/2% guys, they don't even measure right? Because these guys are like 1,000,000% higher than the 40% of American population. And back in the days, in the late 50s and 60s up to mid 70s, the working class in America was about 30% below the richest people, 30%, not 1,000,000%. Now, don't believe a word I say. I'm just your griot. I just tell you stories, This is just a story. But get ready for this super wild roller coaster ride, hidden from day one. So Donnie wants to get 40 million illegal immigrants out of America. And he wants to bring in the army. The army is trained just to kill people. They aren't trained to deal, with the public. And that's why we have Posse Comitatus, which is a law stating that the army should not come into America and do anything, right? They should not force Americans to do anything. They should not represent the government with the public. Now that's, up to the states through their National Guard, right? But the National Guard is only for that one state, right? So yes, Texas and Florida and whoever else wants to be Nazis and have their National Guard to enforce it, they can do that. But Massachusetts and New Hampshire can't do that. Now, Donald wants to take the Nazis from Texas and bring them into Massachusetts, so the Massachusetts have to bend to his will. That's not going to fly. That's so unconstitutional. But he's got a Supreme Court that will do whatever he wants them to do, right? So this is going to be loads of fun, kids. And he's already passed laws getting inside of women's hoo-hoos. You can't have an abortion. You can't take the pill. I mean, they're going to strike down birth control. They already did it, right? They've had it done before. So they're going to look at some law that was passed in 1890 and say, yep, see, look, it's still on the books. And they've already done that in states, right? So I just love it because it's just, I live out in the middle of nowhere. I live on nothing. I'm about to die anyway. And this is America. And see, we don't need a revolution. And we can't have one because the average guy is so lazy. I mean, I think I told you this story before. 20 years younger, and I got here 5 years before, I started to get to know a lot of the people here, right? And so they like, well, you're strange, but you're all right guy. I kind of like you. You know a lot of stuff, and you don't treat me like a dummy, and you ask me questions, and then you respond to how I feel, and it makes me think, and I like that. You're really okay, right? So there's a lot of Ku Klux Klan. People would consider them Ku Klux Klan, white misogynists, blah 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 blah, but they're not, right? It's just within the culture of where they are, and I haven't really seen anything else. But they're not animals; they're human beings, right? They have that spark of God inside of them. And if you play to that, they respond quite nicely, right? And I can say stuff to them, like I say to you guys, and they go, right? That's it. So some people are saying something. Let's see what you're saying here. Let's see. No, that's all fish. So come on, there's one of you. You can say something. So anyway, back to the story. So this one friend of mine, so he's lived here forever, and he's a woodsman, meaning cuts down trees. And that's what a lot of guys around here do, right? And they can make a pretty good living at that, like probably take home 70 to 100 grand a year. Right? And they like being out in the woods, and I love driving around those big skidder machines. I mean, they are. And, they know what they're doing with falling trees, right? So anyway, this is one guy who likes to fish. So I would go with him. And what he likes to do, he doesn't like doing it off a boat. I mean, he has this little fishing boat that he sits on a flat thing and fishes, but he gets really bad sunburn. So what he likes to do is drive his car. And so he knows all the forest roads, meaning they're not county roads, they're not state roads, they're not paved roads. These have been cut into the forests by the loggers, right? And they use them, not just once, but a number of times because they're going in through different things, but there's lots of major. So they've got stones and culverts and stuff like that. So, and they're pretty good at that. So the guys who fixed the freaking roads that the federal government said would never be fixed, and thus, declared the land inhospitable, and then, took the properties from these people who own these farms for generations with eminent domain, and then sold them weeks later to the international real estate cartels. So anyway, this goes way before this ever was happening. So anyway, I go out and go fishing with this guy, and I would take my hammock, and we kind of hike into the woods, and be a really beautiful space, and I would have a hammock, and I'd have two, and so I'd put one up for me, one for him, but he'd be out there with his like waders, and he'd be on the side where everything was wet and gooey, and he would be out there catching fish. He's really good at it. And he'd get a bucket full, and I would have made a nice little camp and find stones and make a nice little thing. And he had this really great little grilly thing that, folded up into a little thing, put it in his pack, and until you stick the fish in and clamp it down and put it in the fire, turn it over, bingo, it's right. So we would cook up the fish, and I would bring vegetables that I'd already cut up, and maybe if they were hard vegetables like potatoes and carrots and broccoli, I'd boil them up a little bit and saute them a little stuff and seasonings, and then wrap them up in aluminum and put it in a plastic bag in my pack. And then when we did the fish, I would, and I build a fire and I throw the aluminum packs in there, and then the fish would cook relatively quickly, and then we'd open the aluminum and put the fish on it, and bingo bango. And sometimes I'd make rice, and so it was very nice. We did that a good deal in those 3 summers, right? So I bought the place for free. I got to be buddies with these guys in 4, 5, 6, 7. And then Obama gets, elected, and they lose their apoplectic mind. Blah, 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 black, 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 black. I said, guys, you don't understand. You're more black than they are. They go, what? I said, color is irrelevant. It's about class. And Obama represents the 1/10 of 1%, not you, not the black guys in the hood. Yeah, he can shoot baskets better than you can, but that's not him. He came from being a community activist to a state legislator to making a speech at the Democratic convention, and then becomes a senator and then president. Like in a matter of years, not decades, years, right? And I said, he was put there, just like George W. was put there. And, Obama is a melanin character actor, just like George W. was a melanin challenged character, right? So, but still represented the same class. And I would explain it to them, and they would go, and they would think about that, right? But still, they couldn't get past, a black guy being president. So they really gunned up. Manila guns, but they had 30-06. By 08, they all had, 9mm and ARs or something of a version, some automatic rifle. And so one day we're out there fishing, and he's trying to do something. This little ring that I made, and the fire's in there, and he's trying to break something. And he's got a rock, and he's holding it there, and he whacks the crap out of his hand, right? Like between 2 rocks, right? And and I said, I just kind of grab him, and I walk him into the lake and stick his hand in, it's summertime, but I sit him down and stick his hand in there, and our lake is cold, and there's springs all over it. That's why it's cold. And so we're kind of near an area where the trout love it because it's cold, right? And so he's sticking his hand, and it's cold, and his hand's feeling better and better. And there's a willow tree, right? And so I go and break off some limbs, and I peel off the bark, and I say, here, chew on this. And he's chewing on it, and he goes, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore. I said, because willow is kind of like aspirin, right? And so is the other tree that's cousin to willow that's in Sweden. That really is aspirin. Anyway, so he's chewing on the bark, and that was really to distract him, right? And so I took the limbs, and I kind of, had aluminum, and I kind of stuck them in the water, and then rolled them up in the aluminum, put them in the fire, and it kind of, softened them so I could, and I bent them around his fingers, right? And then up to his wrist, and then I said, let's give him the bark, So all the bark he was chewing on, I tied his fingers up to that. So we had the fish, right? And his hand, he still sat in the lake and kept his hand in the cold water. And so we packed up, and I was in much better shape than I am now. This is like maybe 04, 05. And no, it's 8. It's definitely 8 because Obama. No, maybe. I'm not quite sure. Somewhere between 6 and 8. I don't know if it was Obama's there yet or not or whatever it was. But anyway. So, we go to the emergency room, and I know the guy who's on duty that day, and he's like a bone specialist, breaking your hand, your shoulder, your collar, whatever. He's really good at that. He's also good at, reading the EKG, the X-ray, the CAT scan, right? So he takes X-ray and goes, yeah, this guy really busted his hand up, but Al, you did a great job. This willow, whatever this tree is, and what you did, everything's in alignment. He's fine. So what I'm going to do is and the way you set this stuff up, it's good. I can just snip it off and put a brace on it, and because it's already kind of setting, it's all great. That first 4 hours are the big deal. And so we got there, and he luckily he had just come on thing, and so he did that, and then he did this other kind of thing to really, so the guy couldn't move his hand around like a cast, but it wasn't. It was something else. So the guy basically, and the doctor kept saying, Al, you did a great job. This guy's hand would really be messed up if you didn't know what you were doing. You got him here without doing anything to it. He, I'd probably have to break stuff in other ways, and now I don't. It's like doing a great job. So anyway, so that really impressed this guy. I mean, he was already my bud, but he was really impressed, right? So he said, we're starting our we're going to have a second thing, amendment thing. I said, you mean a unified militia? He said, yeah, that we're going to have a militia. I said, because we got to get ready. I said, what do you got to get ready for? We all kind of freaked out with like 2K and then 9/11. It's just, we have to be ready. I said, okay. So, we stayed buds. His hand really healed up. Other people were calling me Doc. Anyway, then time went on, and I still was, I was not living here, right? I was coming here. I was staying here weeks and maybe a month here and there, but I was still I had my consultant business, and I had real estate all over the place, and I was keeping an eye on everything. I had different businesses, blah, 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 blah. I was doing social activism and art and still doing all the stuff I do. And so I, between 06 and 2015, I didn't come here. I mean, I would come here for a weekend or a week, but in the spring, late spring, summertime, fall, I'd be here a week or maybe 2 weeks or a couple of times in those periods. But I was never here for the winter, right? I would, December 10th, I'd be in Florida, right? So anyway, so then I die, 2014, get my homeostasis together, and that took about a year. I was in a wheelchair, still had my legs, they wanted to cut my legs off. I still had my legs in clamps, and when I got out of the chair, I needed to be on a walker, but now not so much, I can walk around, I mean, my bone doctor, my endocrinologist, all my doctors who are smart, because I have some dumb doctors too. I just need them bureaucratically. So they all are like amazed that I can even walk, right? So because you shouldn't be able to walk, your legs are totally screwed, right? Most people would have gotten hip replacements and knee replacements and foot replacements, But you didn't. You kept with, and they seemed to work. And I said, yeah, because what would have happened? What were the odds that everything would work well after you redid everything? And they said, not too good. So, and that's half of my doctors are really honest, tell me the truth about stuff. And so they said, you're doing, as long as you keep doing this, whatever you're doing great, right? So, I ended up here because, I sold the school. I got rid of everything, all my real estate, everything, right? Closed up shop. Because I knew if I kept doing the stuff I did, making money and all of that, which I was pretty good at doing, I would die. I had to literally change my life, right? And God told me that, so I did it. And I did what God told me to do, so here I am. And I keep doing, pretty much minute to minute, I say, God, so I have no idea, you got the wheel. I'm just a doer, right? So it works, at least for me. So we're doing fine. And so I sell the school for John, and I stay with him because I see this guy really needs some help, and no one's helping him. His family, his ex, his kids, nobody, right? And so I stick with him, but it's a difficult, God says, stick with this guy because he at least needs to take care of the school, which John did a great job. He fixed everything that needed. And I stuck with him for at least a good year, making sure that things that really needed to be fixed so the building wouldn't fall down got fixed first. He did all that. And then he did working so hard, 18 hours a day. Not really. His parents gave money. He got people to work on things, carpenters, painters, sheetrock guys. I put up a lot of sheetrock. I taped and plastered most of it. And John did what you do. So he threw me out 32 times. And again, I said, so God, what's this all about? And God said, well, it's really a good thing because it constantly puts you in these other situations where I need you. And if you were, trying to look for them, you'd never find them. But putting you in a corner really puts you in a place where you kind of are placed exactly where you need to be to do what I want you to do. So I have no idea what I'm doing. God constantly does that. So for 32 times, God did that. And they were all amazing situations, taking over the first Christian church and let the board do it, and the fake usual suspect minister that had no theology training. He was like Donald Trump. He was just a scammer. And I ran everything because no one could, no one did, no one knew what to do, and I did it, right? I brought all these people in. The church had only 11. The church was this beautiful old church built in the 1890s. It was designed to seat about 400 people. And when I went there, when this guy got the gig to be the minister there, they only had 11 people. 11 old people were about to die. And they wanted to reinvigorate. And so they got this guy who was young. He was in his 40s, and he ran a thing, a 501c Christian outreach thing, but all he was doing was, getting money and doing nothing, right? Kind of like what Goodwill does. And the only of all those entities that do that, the mission that takes care of homeless people, and I work for them, and I constantly got guys off of drugs and got them, we go into an abandoned building and fix it up, and I get the county or the city or whoever say, wow, this is great. Sure, they can have that building. And then the mission would get upset. We were going to take that and make money out of it and blah, blah, blah. And that's what is going on in America. So we have to really realize we have to stop doing this. And this, show what they were talking about, Edgar Cayce, and there's all this technology that's already been discovered by Tesla and people like that, by a whole bunch of people. Faraday and the guy who invented television, Forrestal, and a whole bunch of people, right? They were well known in their time, but nobody knows them now. And yeah, everyone thinks that, moron boy, Elon, basically, just look at the way he danced around on stage with Donald Trump. I mean, two morons together. It couldn't be, it's like, people should have just looked at that and go, really? We're going to have those guys running our, but we're going to, right? And it's going to be just so much fun. It just makes me giggle, right? Because it's going to be bad, and not bad good either. Even in your little town, you're going to have, guys in black uniforms, and are going to have a wrist thing with a mega light through it. We've seen this over and over before, right? So here we are, and it's going to happen. We're not a banana republic. Oh, yes, we are. So it's just couldn't happen to a better bunch, and we are gonna, we have bankrolled, the suffering of everyone in the Middle East. We have since the 1890s. England, United States, and others have basically, gone after resources and basically use the people as Sparta. Go watch the movie Lawrence of Arabia, right? That's a good movie, right? And Alec Guinness, who plays King Fahd, the guy, the first guy that made the deal with France and England, so he could take over Saudi Arabia that had the most oil. The last scene, as the whole movie goes through, and basically, our boy Lawrence. They didn't call him Larry of Arabia; they call him Lawrence. Lawrence was really believed in everything, and that's why he was so great as a leader. And then he realized everything he had done, all the terrible things he had done, all of that stuff that he believed in. And when he tried to bring his friends together to bring, a Arab kind of solidification so they could, have peace and prosperity because they had all these resources. He then realized that he was just being played, and so were all these guys, and that they were just heading down the worst of the worst. And here we are at the worst of the worst of the worst. And we have bankrolled it for all of these years, all this suffering, millions of people dead, suffering, and what's happening in Gaza and everywhere else in that area. And it's not over. I mean, just Syria is, it's not over. It's going to be. And so we have to pay for that. I mean, we have paid for it economically. But guys like Lockheed Martin and Grumman Aerospace and Raytheon, they made a fortune of selling these weapons with our tax dollars paying for it, right? Not Israel paying for it. And we keep, if Donald said, okay, I'm cutting everything off, no more money for you guys, no more weapons, that would be it. It would stop like that. Is he going to do it? No, I don't think so. So, because there's the hidden hand behind everything, right? And no one is looking at that. It's really obvious, I play little ditties of everyone talking about it, and the stuff I played earlier in this show about the politics and MSNBC and CB, all those guys. They've written the script. They know which. No one talks about the transnational oligarchy. That's not just one nation doing this, not just Russia or Ukraine or America or no, it's all these oligarchs in all these countries. They're the ones who are part of this transnational oligarchy, right? And it's a transnational thing, not a nation state. We don't have nation states anymore. And we are heading for what, good old, the guy who gave us Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry. He worked for naval intelligence before he ended up working for Desilu, right? He went straight from the Navy to Desilu writing scripts for Gunsmoke. And, he's a pretty good writer, smart guy, well-educated, representing not the Navy. See, Navy is like if you really dig into the history of Navy, it's one of the U.S. Navy is one of the oldest, along with the English Navy, and they're like cousins, right? They had that special relationship. The special relationship started with them. So they are very much a mystery school organization, right? Kind of Masonic, kind of this, that, and the other thing. So they basically, he came with a script, the Federation, Star Trek, because we were already out there. The Nazis were already out there before World War II. We had, in the United States, there were the Germans that came to the United States after the Civil War and picked up on all these kind of mystery school burial grounds all over the world. When I was in Trinity with Archie, who was this Scottish, Earl. I mean, he came from, big money up there in Scotland. And he was one of those guys who, in that story there with Mel Brooks. Anyway, so Archie basically was, part and parcel of all kinds of mystery schools. And so he understood that there were pyramids, ley lines, power, energy, vortexes all over the planet. And he was discovering them. And, I went with him for a good 6 months up and down the West Coast. That's how I met the old crone through him, right? Because he was her buddy, and she had been, an immortal. The old crone's an immortal, right? The character in Doctor Strange, the bald chick, or you don't know. It's like the true transgendered superhero there in Doctor Strange, and so she's using dark energy to stay alive, which is a no-no. It's like mixing, don't mix the fields, in Ghostbusters. And so there we go. It's kind of, so there's a good 5 of you. So come on, let's see some thumbs up, guys. So, Archie and I went all over the West Coast of Ireland, and we found a bunch of, and everyone said Archie was nuts, but he didn't care. He had a chair at Trinity, right? And his great, he had, all those guys had that. And they were all looking, they were Celtic scholars, right? Even though they came from Scotland and England and in Ireland. So they were accepted, by the Irish as righteous dudes because they all had castles there. And Archie had a castle there, right? Kind of on the edge of Galway. So anyway, I've been exposed to this my whole friggin' life. On every, I was supposed to be a rocket scientist for the Pope. I had a godfather who was a cardinal in the Catholic scene, Cardinal Cushing. Go look him up. Go see his TV shows. He was one of the first guys on, religious guys on TV before Billy Graham, before any of those guys. It was Cardinal Cushing. And he looked like Bela Lugosi in a black dress and, red satin dancing slippers and a little red beanie. And he was a trip. So he exposed me to all of the occult that's in the Vatican. And there's a ton of it. Just like in Judaism, because so the Torah is you suck, and this tabla. And that's esoteric, meaning hidden knowledge, but nothing just hidden. It's like, the Protestants keeping the Jews out of the country club, that level of hidden. And then there's the Kabbalah, right? And now that's occult, now that's power. And so I studied that, and I was studying it, and then I moved to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, back in the day, like in 75, way before any other artist was there. And Rabbi Ratner was the head Hasid. So he had a lot of power. He had a lot of power in Israel. And he never went to Israel. I mean, he went there. But his real base was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, upstate New York. And he, had all this real estate, and he sold it on the cheap. And first he burnt it to the ground and got the insurance money and bought into Silicon Valley way back in the 70s. And he bought diamonds because they were liquid, right? And so he used that as power, right? And so he loved me like a son, right? And so he used to come up to my loft, and I had this big library of all kinds of theologic books, and they were in Greek and Hebrew and Latin and every other language. And he goes, "You read this stuff?" I said, "Sure." And so he pulled out one of the Kabbalic books I had, and basically I could take the Hebrew into Greek. And then wow, that's pretty cool. Because I know a little Greek, so can you go from Greek into English? I said, "Sure." So, and that was when my brain was very placid and very nimble, not so much anymore. And my eyesight was much better. And I wasn't really racked with pain. So this whole time I've been talking to you, things have hurt, meaning, and I couldn't, but I have to get up and move around a little bit. So I'll show you how flexible I am. So here I go. So if I fall down, you will watch me die. Put my cane all the way over there. This little heater does a great job. It's heating the whole thing up. It's about as high as I can lift my arms. And this is getting in painful zone. But if I do that, then my body feels better. And I stand on one leg, and I move the leg. So it's moving the hip, the knee, the ankle, the toes. So 10 years ago, I couldn't do that. 10 years ago, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't move any of my legs, my arms, my joints. But now I can. And all my doctors don't know how I do it. But I do have to get up and move around. So come on, let's have some thumbs up here, kids. So there's more of you out there. And no one's, the fish has been the only one who is really let's see. What time is it? No, it's not. So, this is one of my students who is younger, and so she's not very good. She really wants to learn, but she doesn't want to take the time. So I've sent her a lot of stuff. Anyone wants to read any of my writing, get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42, the Dude Awake 42 at gmail.com. Dude Awake 42 at gmail.com. And you want to throw anything in the old, PayPal? I kind of seemed thinking I kind of got it working. Someone sent me some money and I was able to get it into, big $10. So anything you want to throw into that PayPal, that'd be great. I mean, I can live on whatever I got. This Christmas, I have a big, after paying all my bills, I have a big, not that much. I have nothing in my wallet. If I go into my man cave, I keep sticking folding cash here, there, and I have to find it. It's the only way I can motivate myself to clean up the man cave, right? And so I think I have, you can go to my, let's see, this thing. Here we go. There's chemtrails. There's the deep green. That's what the man cave looks like. It's like the space station. We'll give you some of these images.
Christmas dinner with all the folks in an undisclosed location. I hope you have a good holiday.
So that was Christmas dinner we did of all the 180 people who saved the day from the event. Here they are telling stories.
Good to see you. John, so the donkeys were playing basketball here, and the donkeys were wearing high heels. The donkeys didn't have no high heels. No? Now that would have been a sight. It's like having enough water for everybody to drink. That's why I told them to drop water.
So here's all the plastic that came out of the sky. Not really snow. Because it was about 50 degrees. It went away when it rained on it. And so here's the man cave.
So here's where I sleep. A little rack. Here's where I have my clothes.
Closet.
Used to have them kind of hanging up in this little teeny closet here, but it's just seemed to want to mold up under there. Here takes a little more time, and I do hit it with a little Lysol. Here's fun. My toilet. When I got this place from my brother, it looked like that. It's like, the white plastic has been taken off. But at least this is better than, so this little bathroom is 36 inches wide by 52 inches long. And that's a bathtub that never worked. Sink never worked. Plumbing never worked. Right? So you can't throw the toilet paper down there. You have to collect it and burn it. And here's a coat I don't want to wear, but it's a little moldy. Smells a little like mold, just a little. Put it on the heater. So anything cloth, and see, this ain't even cloth. This is kind of any clothes we wear today
are made from oil. I'm sorry to tell you that, but and this shit will outlast us, as civilization. We'll be fine doing this shit 100 years, 1,000 years from now. What were these people thinking? Well, the thing is, we don't think, right? We really don't. It's all about profit, right? So I used to have a 11,000 square foot factory in Lynchburg, Virginia. I had a art school, about a 7,000 square foot art school in Roanoke, Virginia. I had 7 little, 2,200 square foot concrete worker houses, 2 floors, kind of a basement. And in Vinton, Virginia, and I had a really nice southern plantation type of house on the Intercoastal in Stuart, Florida. And I had a fishing lodge out off of Long Key Pine, mile marker 45, I think it was, in the Keys of Florida, right? Between Key Largo and the one at the end. Anyway, so whatever so that was a lot of stuff I had. So this is what I got left, right? And in a 900 square foot space, it's so that was all of that square footage was like maybe 180,000 square feet. So to squeeze 180,000 square feet worth of stuff into 900 square feet, this is what you get. This is my life. And why did I do this? My wealth. The Bible says, rich man asked Jesus, how do I get to heaven? And he said, get rid of all your worldly goods and wealth and give it to the poor, which I did, right? And this is just the kind of peripheral stuff, right? And I leave it like this because it is, instead of having a religious thing to this stuff, this is what it is, right? Just stuff I use every day. Can opener, cans of food. That's kind of what it is. Anyway, so I hope you liked the little tour. And it's Thanksgiving. So I'm going to show this next time I do a show. So people can have, I give thanks that I have this, right? Because I would be out under a tree. Yep, I'd be out under a tree, which would be okay. I mean, 460 days, 440 days of the year, it's all good. It's just this is the surrounding motif of the deep green, but everything's dead. This is, I did this a week ago. Let's see. Blue, when I came out here, now it's silver. I'm recording anyway. Let's see if I do this. I'll let you know what to. I guess this is a quick one. I'm going to see if I can stick this on the whatever. But there's going to be a show in about a half hour. So come with questions. Look at all that shit. That's what's up in our air. That's what you're doing to us. And then all of a sudden,
turned silver. How did that happen? Oh my God! Oh!
Yep. Oh yeah, I was gonna call Honey Bun, see if she.
Please leave your message for 2.
Anyway, we go straight to voicemail. She doesn't even get she's got it, my number, so we go straight to voicemail, right? Let's see if she's texted me anything. I've been in the zone of texting. See if she's. Let's see what she says. Maybe this is. No, this is. No. That was from a couple of days ago. Let's see if she sent me anything on my email. Oops, something went wrong. Let's see. All mail. Nope. Well, since a lot of people say, I can't believe more people don't watch the show. This is a great show. Why don't more people watch the show? Why? Because I'm kept down on the North 40, which is fine, right? YouTube lets me do the show. That don't really stop me or anything. It's just, I once did years ago, I did a takeoff of Jerry Lewis's telethon, and basically,
Is everything that we're perceiving as chaos or randomness actually just disguised pattern? In the beginning, nobody else could see them. Now everyone goes in there. Once they see it, they can't unsee it. We are dimensionally limited avatars, and we are awakening to these patterns that we thought were entropic. There's still more dimensions ahead of us that we just don't comprehend yet. There are 6-dimensional beings. Arcturians are just future humans. And they've been here all along, but Earth has not been vibrating at the frequency of perception of that. Our brains are radio receivers, and our heart is the tuning dial. And we can tune in to different frequencies of future states and timelines. Maybe the speed of light isn't really the speed of light, but rather the speed of our perception. Babylon is actually a reference to the Egyptian god Thoth. The original Babylon, I believe very firmly, was actually Egypt. I just wrote this, and I've not talked about this on any other podcast. The big aha since we last talked is the criticality of achieving authenticity. Authenticity is the most important aspect of where we are in the stage of awakening in the world. And so people ask me all the time, what's the difference between authenticity and just unconditional love, or authentic love versus unconditional love? And I've spent a lot of time contemplating this subject. And you may have heard me before say that I believe that the opposite of love is actually judgment. It's not. I don't believe it's fear. I don't believe that it is hatred. There's a fine line between love and hate. I believe that it's actually conditionality. So conditionality leading to judgment. So everything in our world is based on some form of judgment, but we just don't realize how our own conditioning biases inform those judgments. Because the things that benefit us are the things that we choose to do, and we say that it's for the public benefit or for the public good, when actually it's self-interest. It's self-interest disguised through the mask of our personas. And we simply say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for the benefit of all, when actually it's truly some form of corruption at its base. The corruption is that, I forgot to mention that, I get paid on the side for this, or I'm benefited because of that, or socially I'm benefited, reputationally I'm benefited. And so every single thing that we advocate for,
that we think is for some other higher good or benefit is actually for our own benefit and good, first and foremost. And so what happens is we all can easily say, oh, yes, it's all about unconditional love, unconditional.
I'm going to drop in here. Well, he's all right. And I constantly, people, you do all this great stuff. Why do you do it? Well, it makes me feel good, right? It makes me happy. Back in the day when I actually made money, all the things I ever did, and my first wife used to get really upset because I would invent stuff and do stuff, make art, et cetera, and never really take credit for it. But I did, because the guys who were at the top of the art world in New York and the NEA and all of that knew me. And whatever I wanted to do, I would say, hey, I want to do this. They say, no problem, here's a check, right? And I didn't have to go through the process that most people have to, getting their teeth pulled to, get any kind of grant or any kind of, and if you become, I had a lot of friends that, like Julian Staub was a good example. People know of him, and he basically, he had a lot of talent. He had a lot of time in. He went to school and had a background culturally as a painter, culturally understanding the metaphors of it, and he understood how to, make what the market wanted at the time that he was doing this. So he would knock these suckers out, and get 50 to 100 grand a painting, right? And then he was in the Whitney Annual. Then he was, MoMA was buying his paintings, and he did that for, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 years, and he made a lot of money and bought properties and blah, 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 right? But he wanted to do something else. As soon as he did something else, no one even looked at what he did. You'd think they would, because he's Julian Schnabel. But guys like Andy Warhol, that I knew really well, he understood it. He never swayed from what the market wanted him to do. So he was always right there, Mr. Success, right? Every day. I have a really good friend, like Kiki Smith, way back, like to the 1970s and 80s of, Lower East Side art scene, right? And a lot of folks in the art world, even though they were living, in the garret, et cetera, never really had to worry because their family, meaning me, I never really had to worry. My parents were upper middle class. No, they never gave me a nickel. They never helped me out. But I knew if there was ever a need, it was that safety net was over there. I was never, on the high wire. I wasn't doing it over their safety net. I was over here, right? But I kind of knew it was over there. So all my brothers and sisters, living under that safety net of my parents, but they had to give up their life, right? They all had to work for my parents. They all had to, they made a lot of money. They had a nice, big house. My dad bought them everything they wanted, sent all their kids to college, blah, blah, blah. Me, none of that. And I took care of my parents for the last 28 years. I did it because, again, people say, well, why are you doing that? Your parents really suck. Here's a good example of how my parents suck. So I was taking care of my parents, and this is before I bought my nice, beautiful plantation house on the Intercoastal off of Stewart, Florida. So Stewart was a good 20 miles from where my parents lived. And a friend of mine, a lawyer friend, he had this, he was a lawyer, his wife was a lawyer, but they lived on a sailboat, kind of on the Intercoastal. And they decided they wanted to start a practice in Stewart because it was close enough to Miami where they could do that business. It was close enough to pretty much everything. She was a very much, community activist lawyer, right? Environmental, and also taking care of poor people, right? Whereas he really could play to the rich folk, right? He was really good at that, right? And so, so he had a pretty good cash flow. And so did I. I had a pretty good cash flow at that time too. And so first he bought a thing right down at, Stewart, Florida, in the 90s was kind of dead. I mean, it had been the center of the hipsters where the all the people from vaudeville and Broadway and movies were made in New York, not in California, but they would go to Florida, right, for the winter. And there were all these big, beautiful houses along the intercoastal. And Stewart was a beautiful city, and it was the power city, right? It was like what Palm Beach is now, and what Mar-a-Lago is now. Palm Beach is more like the 90s. And so first he bought this beautiful house right downtown Stewart and had a big backyard that was kind of funked out, but big, big tree. And so we turned that into a parking lot, like 20-car parking lot. And it had an in-out. You could drive off that where the hospital road was, where the main drag on the other side of the property was. So you could drive in-out, right? And in the back side is where they had their legal offices. And in the front side, where the living room was, the kitchen was, they had, they turned it into a French cafe, right? Really, someday I'll unearth the photos of that. And it was great. And that was like, and it had, one of the first places that had free Wi-Fi. And so it was that. And then I found this other beautiful, unbelievable, gorgeous building that had been, like I said, it was a plantation house, right? Right on, and it was built by some 1920s movie star, right? But it was at the end of the cul-de-sac, right at the it kind of jutted out and it had its own beach and its own marina, and it had a beautiful lawn, right? And it had a hole, you could play one hole, right? It was like, 100 yards and you could get on the green, and then it was like, interesting pitch and putt. So it's that, and in between we had croquet and badminton, and it was just most fun. And so we'd have the greatest parties. And we bought it for virtually nothing because no one had lived in it for a good 20 years. And it was kind of wasn't falling apart, but getting old. No one's in it, right? But it wasn't rotting, didn't have mold. It was just a lot of cobwebs, right? But it had beautiful floors and it had beautiful everything and a big, beautiful deck all the way around, like Southern. Big columns, and then all the way around on the second floor. And then on the third floor, big, beautiful bedroom that had this big deck that you could walk out onto, big French doors on both sides. So you could look at the intercoastal and look at the ocean. So anyway, we bought that for, I think it was under 30 grand, because the septic line from the city came to a place where it went on into the next township that then went on to the next town, which was Palm Beach, right? So all the rich people shit came down there, and it wasn't designed for that. So there was a T there that kind of broke down, and so all the shit would go into the intercoastal, and no one cared, and it smelled terribly. And so my friend, I showed it to him, and we walked through it. I mean, he had, being the lawyer, had to go see who owned it, and that's why he bought it for nothing, because it was like 4 acres of this amazingly and beautiful gardens and everything you could imagine, but overgrown and needed some work. And I one day was on Route 1 and stopped off at Walmart's, and there was a guy in a truck, Hispanic guy, and a couple other Hispanic guys, and said, we'll work for money, we'll work for food. And I said, hey guys, and they go, no inglés. And I said my few words in Spanish, and then said, no inglés. And they laughed. And I said, so I got some work for you, but come and see. And so they came and saw, and I said, so there's a problem with this septic here. And have you guys ever done any septic work? And this one guy who said no inglés says, oh yes, I've done a lot of this in Mexico City, and I know exactly what's wrong. They put 3 pipes into one big pipe, and we'll dig it up, and we'll replace, we'll make it, more the way it's supposed to be, so all the shit goes towards the shit factory. And he goes, everything is in line. It's not having to go up a hill. Everything is fine. It's just that these guys just stuck the pipes in there willy-nilly. And it kind of worked for probably 10, 15, 20 years, but then it didn't, and nobody was living there, and it started to smell bad, so they didn't care. So that's why we bought it cheap. These guys fixed it, about a grand worth of pipe and stuff, and they were great. They just dug it out with picks and shovels, and bing, bang, boom, did it in 3 days. No inspection, no nothing, because it was at the end. No one ever went down there. It smelled bad. We actually built, because there was no other properties, it was just ours and the Intercoastal. And so, up the road a while, there was kind of a gate. So we fixed, that was the first thing we did. We fixed that gate so people couldn't come down. And we looked at lots that were there, but Intercoastal kind of had washed them away. And, he basically bought the property and the other lots, so he didn't have to worry legally about any rights of way or anything. And for less than somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. And this was somewhere, this is after the bubble, so it was after 9/11. So it was probably 2002. I hadn't really hit my desperate lawyer, working as a consultant yet, legal consultant. But anyway, we started, it's called the Blue Door. Oh, let's see if we can find the Blue Door on this. The Blue Door in Stuart, Florida. Oh, there it is. There's the front door. So it had the front lawn we turned into this big patio. And we had a stage, so we had music every night. And we had instruments. I don't know if you can still see them. We had them hanging all over the place. And it was a French cafe. I mean, baguettes, the whole thing. Great little French, great espresso. There's the bar, back of the bar, the back bar. It's the door out to the patio. William and Catherine were my buds. So this was great because the town was kind of basically dead. And this became, the central kind of place where people came. Yep. View all photos. Oh, here we go. So this was a house. Right? Well, here's somebody playing music. Anyway, so that's a Blue Door. So my William and his wife and me, and there were other people who did it, but the three of us, I knew them before they landed in Stuart. They had a sailboat. They went all over the place in the sailboat, and they would do. William had been a corporate lawyer, And Catherine had been, a social activist lawyer, and I met them in Tortola, and we cruised around the Caribbean a bit and stayed in touch with them. And I had places in Florida that they would come and visit, and then they decided, this is, they found Stewart. My parents, like I said, that was they lived about 20 miles away on the other side of 95 in this, really fancy schmancy gated community. So, that was my life. I had shit like that going on all the time, right? I would just stumble into these things and do them. I'm not worried, if I had money or this or that, it would always work out. Nothing, and I had no expectation of success or anything. Oh, it has to happen. I want to be an A-lister. No, I'm just having a good time. I had a good time fixing the sewer lines, and then closed it up and it didn't smell anymore. But that was like, whoa. Right? Then we went after that, and then we had bought the restaurant. We had done that, they bought that first. I then found this other place, and they were making good money, and I was making pretty good money. And so we put together our resource and bought the Plantation. That's what we call it, the Plantation. And the Plantation of art and culture. And it had a pool, and like I said, it had its own marina. You could put a gigantic yacht there if you wanted. And I think at the height, William sold it for millions, right? And he said, because it was all in his name, wasn't in my name. And I'd lived in it for years, and just did a lot of stuff there, and that was great. It was not a problem. And as long as I was in Florida, that was a place I could hang. I had my own little part of the house for the whole time before I died, right? And because it was a great community, right? There were a lot of really interesting people in Stewart. I don't know what Stewart's like now, but the Blue Door was the center of all culture, and then other little restaurants opened up on the main drag, because we were on this side of the hospital, and the rest of downtown was on the other side. And the peninsula, which the Plantation was on this side of the hospital. And the road kind of went out on this peninsula. And this side over here was this other town. So the peninsula went this way into the intercoastal. There's the bridge that went over to A1A that was maybe half a mile in front of our property. And that's where